Hey there, print printers and print fans. Today we're going to be cleaning off and assembling some 3D printed roses. So first, what I'm doing here is removing the supports from the stems. And unfortunately, when I did my settings on our slicing software, which is the kind of software you use to set up the printer, I did not do a very good job with setting up these supports. So they are very well attached. Usually they should pull off pretty easily, but they are very well attached. So what I'm having to do is actually clean each of these stems off with an X-Acto knife. And I'm making a big mess on my desk that I just cleaned today. Oh well, guess we'll be cleaning it again. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time on this first one, and then we'll kind of skip on through on the next few, because I actually have 8 of these to make today. So if you're not familiar, supports are actually a way that we can print items that are not completely flat to the build plate. And so with these stems, they do have a rounded shape at the bottom, and they do require supports because of that. I'm going to have to play with my settings on my slicer just to see if I can get better settings for future prints, but I already had these done and I didn't want to waste a good print besides the support, so I figured I'd go ahead and get these cleaned off. Now the stems look a little bit strange at this point because of where the leaves are placed, but you'll actually see later on in the video that with some heat treatment we can actually put those leaves in really any position that we want, so it makes them look more natural. The reason that they are designed this way is so that when they print, they don't have to have as many supports as if they were actually completely realistically placed. So I'm almost done with this, just getting the final little bit off of there, and just going to take a look. It's still a little rough, but that's okay. Nature's not perfect either, so it's okay if our print isn't. Here's 4 that I've completed, so those are all done, and I still have these 4 to finish up. I'm going to go ahead and work on these off camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, we are back, and here we have our cleaned up stems, our lovely roses, and the little, I don't know what to call these, the little leaf pieces at the top. Now, I forgot to clean these before starting this step. That's okay, they're really easy to get the supports off of those, so we'll do that later on. What I'm doing here is I'm getting ready to put some glue down. This is the kind of glue I use for prints like this. I like Gem Tack because it has a nice consistency to work with. It dries clear, and it's actually very strong. For the most part, I wouldn't use it on anything that needs to be used that has a lot of movement or articulation, but it's perfect for solid pieces that are mostly meant for decor. I'm going to take just a cheap old brush and dab the glue onto the top of the stem. These stems are actually designed with a screw on the top that screws directly into the rose. So once I'm satisfied with how much glue is there, I will add the little leaf piece. It just slides in through that hole, and I will screw on the top of the rose. So yeah, that's fairly simple. It just screws right on there, and I'll make sure it gets a little bit tight, and we'll let that dry. Next, I'm going to take just a dry brush and run it along the excess glue in the back. Because this dries clear, it won't be noticeable, but if I left it as kind of like a bump of glue, it would dry a little bit more noticeable. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward, work quickly through these several roses, and we'll talk more at the end. Okay, I'm tightening up the last rose on its stem, and now I'm going to go ahead and put away my excess glue. And now we'll just get rid of this painter's tape with glue on it. Easy disposal there. And I'm going to take the dry brush to the back of each of these stems and just brush in. That's a weird visual with the stem right up against the camera. I'm going to go ahead and just brush in the glue so that when it dries it looks more natural. So these are completed, and here they are, looking very beautiful. We still need to work on the heat treatment, so we'll get ready to do that next. But before that, I want you guys to let me know in the comments below. I have this extra rose. What should I do with it? Remember, I have a screw opening on the bottom, so I could try making a headband. I could try a ring. What do you guys think that I should do with this? Let me know. Okay, it's now time for our next step, and this is actually my favorite step. I'm going to use my heat gun. This was, I think, $19.99 at Harbor Freight, and it has 2 settings. We're going to put it on the higher setting, but we're going to use brief spurts of very hot air to first clean off any wispies on the rose. If you've seen or done 3D printing before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then I use just a little bit of heat. I'm turning it off here when I'm not using it. I use a little bit of heat just to heat up the small parts of the print. And as you can see, because they are warm, they melted just enough to be malleable. And so I was able to move them a little bit closer to the actual flower. And now I'm just kind of making them look a little bit more natural, not so snug against the flower. What's great about this process is not only is it something that you can do really easily and quickly, you can also repeat it if you make a little bit of a mistake and need to move it again. You can repeat it. The biggest issue that you'll run into is if you use too much heat for too long, the pieces will actually start to melt, or they can even deform. So if you are trying this, I recommend doing it the first few times on something that's maybe not in order for a customer like this is. But I've done this plenty of times, so I'm very familiar with the process. Something else to keep doing while you're using that heat is move the print around. You want to move it around. Again, if it's in one spot for too long with that heat exposed, it will warp. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can do this a little quicker by working on a few at a time, and we'll see if we can get the rest of these done with the top part. Uh-oh. So I got a little ambitious and did 3 together, and I actually got one of the leaves stuck to each other, or to the petal of the other leaf. Luckily, they weren't quite hot enough to melt together, so I was able to pull them apart, and we are good to go. So now this next part, I'm actually going to use the same process of the heat treatment on these leaves. And the pieces are a little bit bigger, and then the stems are definitely a little bit thicker. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the heat on there. But once I see that they're starting to become malleable, starting to kind of move to the air produced by the heat gun, then I know they're ready. And as you can see, I just kind of bend everything and make it look more natural, put them in more of a natural position. I don't know how natural some of it looks, but it looks a lot better than it did. And trust me, when you have a group of the roses together, they look very good. Now, you can see how quickly that actually cooled down and hardened again. So there's not a lot of time to do this when you do it. But again, as long as you don't heat them up too much, you can repeat the process if for some reason they get a little bit too hard or too stiff, cooled down before you're able to put the leaves the way that you would like them to. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these out, and we'll see what our final product looks like at the end. Okay, I'm just going to finish up placing the leaves on this last rose. And as you can see, when they're all put together, they look very beautiful. If you would like to purchase some of these roses for yourself, check out our shop on Etsy, Danny's 3D Prints, and we'll see you next time.